Hello everyone, welcome back to my Kerbal Space Program series on historical progression. And this time we're going to be going to Duna using a probe that's going to look incredibly like Mariner 4. Yeah, it's got quite wide solar panels, it's got 4 of them arranged, and I'm going to put quite a lot of science on this one because I actually want to do experiments just above the atmosphere, as well as something it's a little surprise I'm going to add to it later, just before I launch it. And what you can see here is I'm trying to work out how to do the propulsion stage. So I'm going to have only RCS on this, but with 4 linear RCS thrusters, it should provide quite a bit of push. And nice big antenna on top, because again, like the last mission, we're going quite far out. This video, I won't bog you down quite in as much of the details as I did on my Eve mission, because basically I think you've seen that, so why not show you something interesting and new. So this is the Agena stage, the thin rocket that's going on top of a heavy Atlas booster, which is exactly the same again as the same rocket family that has launched my last mission. And that's pretty much set, except for the little surprise. This mission took a camera with it and took the first images of the Martian surface. So I'm going to be doing the same with Duna, and I'm going to be sending them back. So what I've done is I prepared a timer which has got me a transfer window to Duna, and I'm going to launch on the day side. Everything looks pretty ready to go, so let's get ready for launch. Throttle up. And something I'm going to be doing with this video is nice new snazzy camera angles. And liftoff. I've always found that the sounds in Kerbal Space Program are a little underwhelming, especially if you're doing a camera that's attached to the hull. It should be blowing your eardrums out, but you're just getting like a faint hiss. But yeah, this is quite a solid launch, and it's a launch system I've used quite a few times now. This mission itself took quite a few times getting right, so all of those times though, the rocket was absolutely fine. It was the KERBINER probe on top that had screwed up, or it was my own timing problems. But the actual rocket, as you can see from the outside now, flies quite straight. And you have to pitch over really early because it's a lot of thrust that you're wasting if you burn upwards with this. So yeah, the mission profile for this is I'm going to try and get within 60,000 feet or meters of the surface of Duna, which should just be skimming the top of the atmosphere, which should allow for gravimetric, maybe barometer readings, depends how far down I can get, and definitely temperature readings. But at the same time, I'm going to leave the camera film running and then send that back as well. So yeah, just in case you haven't seen my videos before, this is a historical progression series, and basically looking at the big missions from the 1950s on to the present day and beyond. But I'm just checking now that my height is, it's definitely high enough. It's like over 100,000, so I can separate, and the Agena should be able to do the long burns. And as you can see, this is the separation camera, and we're away, and full throttle up. And you can see it from this tank that we've left behind there, just it burning away into the distance. And this one's going to return to Kerbin and leave no orbital debris. As you can see, our kind of Freudian, suggestively shaped rocket now. This one will take the Agena stage into interplanetary space again, and fairing. We're getting rid of the fairing now, and it's gone away fine, which didn't happen with Mariner 3, which is why this mission's imitating Mariner 4, not Mariner 3, because the fairing didn't disconnect on that, and then the solar panels couldn't open, and therefore it got no power. But what I've realized here is that while that fairing has opened, my radar can't, the radar antenna can't get a communication with the surface. The vehicle I built last time seems to have messed up again, so I think we'll have to try and fix that. But for the meantime, we've got enough connection just to keep the burn going and get us out of the Kerbin system. But if I'm going to switch away from this, I think I want to open one of the solar panels just so that we have some power when we get back there. Because we don't know how long it'll take to possibly modify the ground vehicle radar. So let's just have a look and see what happened. Well, the vehicle is still there, so I'm just going to cancel it. I've already had a few problems, so you'll notice when I load it up, it's already changed a bit. I've got a new antenna on top because I thought, well, maybe it was the antenna that was shaking loose. But it wasn't that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to strut the absolute crap out of this and hope that if it is shaking apart, the struts will hold it. Because I really can't think of anything else I can change. And to save time, I'm just going to wheel it backwards off the runway after I set the active vessel as the target for the communications dish. Possibly a bit of a flight hazard at this far down the end of the runway, but I'm imagining that I can also use it like a VOR targeter for the runway when I'm coming in to land a plane on the runway. Because it'll give me a distance range on how far away I am from the end, because I can press F4 to show that vehicle in my heads-up display. So yeah, there we go now. We've got a nice solid connection, can open the dish up, and the rest of the solar panel's there. So I think while I'm doing all of the maneuver node hoo-ha, I think I can tell you a little bit about what happened with actual Mariner 4 when it was launched. It was launched in 1964 in November, and it got to Mars in July 1965. They managed to keep contact with the probe in solar orbit until 1967-68, and it was an incredibly complex piece of machinery. It, again, wasn't like the other Mariner missions. It didn't use the Ranger chassis. It was completely new and built around the new experiments they wanted to take. They'd learned what interplanetary space was, but they could now therefore design their experiments better. So it had a helium magnetometer, a solar plasma probe, a TV camera, obviously, but like other radiation detectors, Geiger counters, things that were a lot higher tuned because they only had like a wide range of results. But this is what it looked like, and this is a vague kind of interior diagram. I can't find anything better than that, so I have to apologize about that. But yeah, back to the actual mission, and you can see I'm pointing at the maneuver node I've set up now. And the actual Mariner 4 mission had its own kind of maneuver node. It had a photon detector in the top that would detect single photon sources of light, or within a range of a few pixel sources of light that could be detected as stars, and then it would pick out a certain star and it would burn towards that based on the readings from the ground telemetry, which one it needed to burn towards. And here I think we're going to separate the probe now. Yep, we're burning, the burn is nearly run out, so let's just check the camera, and that's it, that's the probe deployed. And from the probe's angle, there we go. We're leaving the Agena just to float away. The Agena stage should interact with Duna, but it'll probably just be like a couple of million miles, so it'll probably follow the same route as my KERBINER probe through. But yeah, now we've separated, it's time to make fine adjustments, and because I've got an RCS engine and because of the lag, I want to try and do as much as I can now, but as you'll see later in the video, that's not entirely successful. I need to do a lot of burning inside the Duna system. But yeah, there's a lot of messing around with maneuver nodes and the likes here. But yeah, I'd like to take the opportunity now to tell you about something I'm doing just to help make my channel grow a bit. If you like what you're seeing and you think that you would like to see either more of the same or new content, I'm starting a drive over on patreon.com, which, if you haven't heard of it, it is quite new. It's basically a Kickstarter for creative artists. And I think gaming videos falls into this category, and other people have been doing that. And what it is, it's a way that if you like what you're seeing, you can bid, just a few cents, but it's per video. So the more content I make, obviously the happier you're going to be if you like what you're seeing, and therefore it takes some out of your PayPal account on a basis of per video. And the cool thing is that you can set a limit as well. So if you only want to pay 10 cents a video, but don't want to spend more than $1 in a month. If I put in more than 10 videos a month, you can limit it to the dollar, and then you won't pay anything for the 20th video I might submit in a month. And it's really quite important for me because the biggest problem is in terms of what I can upload at the minute is my bandwidth limit on my home internet connection. And that means that even little amounts of money donated really will help this channel grow because I can put that money straight into my internet provider to boost my upload speed. And that means I don't have to leave my laptop for 6 hours a day rendering and uploading on YouTube because it's really quite slow at the moment. But as well, I've got some loftier plans to get an Xbox recording system so that I can do new and interesting games and next gen games. And there's also options as well for people who want to have more direct input into the channel. But I'll put a link. You can head over and check it, or you can find the information on my Sandbox YouTube page. It's in the banner links. But as you can see, we're now in the Duna system. That's Duna and its moon Ike, which hasn't ever been imaged from Kerbin before. They knew Duna was there, but this is completely new to Kerbin science. And what I'm doing is speeding up time, holding down H for about 20 seconds at a time, speeding up time, and just hoping that I can push my orbit really close to the surface of Duna. It's a really tedious process. I mean, all of this at the minute is sped up 4 times on top of the time warp I'm doing in game as well, so that's 16 times when you see it sped up. And the annoying thing is as well, because my RCS engines are all downwards facing, it's using them to try and stabilize my craft, and that's providing extra push that I don't need. But if you look at that, that's really close. I'm quite happy with that. But now I'm setting a custom heading of 90-90-90, which points me straight up from the surface, which means that my bottom-facing camera will be facing the surface. As you can see it just trying to do now, and I realize I probably should have turned RCS off because that's going to keep pushing me, but it's going to be another 6 minutes before the lag kicks in, so I'm going to try and disable the RCS ports to see if that'll do it any quicker. Okay, I'm quite happy with this one. This looks quite like the Mariner mission. And just checking the camera, you can see that we've acquired the surface there. So now the attitude adjuster would kick in and would provide a roll so that the craft always points towards the surface. Okay, let's speed this up a bit till we get a bit closer, and we're coming from the night side, which means as we leave we'll get some nice daytime photos of it. And by programming the autopilot now means that even if we're shadowed from Kerbin, we can still get some nice shots. And what I'm doing is now I'm using action groups to try and get as much science. I'm not sure how far out I can kick the science in, but I'm just pressing 1, 2, 3, 4 to trigger all my experiments and hope that in the 10 minutes that it elapses between the lag, I should be close enough to the surface. But if not, you can just press 1, 2, 3, 4 again and keep doing it until I get some science out of this, because I really want to get some low down science before Kerbin is shadowed from Duna. Because if I'm in the shadow and I'm close enough and I press 1, 2, 3, 4, I might not get the science kicking in until I've flown quite far away. So, and that's it. I've got no connection with Kerbin now. But getting a beautiful sunrise, which is quite amazing. The camera pointing straight at the surface obviously can't get the sunrise and wouldn't want it, but the sunrise is really useful to help pick out mountain features and craters on the surface. And don't worry, this is just the first fly past. I'll show you after this, and after we see what science we've collected, exactly what the camera picked up on the way past. And in a second, the LRGBA, the LURGBA, sounds like some IKEA furniture, should be connecting back with this. And I'm just trying one more time, last ditch attempt at 40,000 meters to get the science triggered, because I have a connection now. Okay. I Wow, that's quite pretty actually. I quite like that. That might be the thumbnail. Maybe not, but it might be. And you can just see Ike there, its shadowy form. Completely, the front of it is not visible to us at the moment, but as we get further out, we should see it, as long as it doesn't disappear behind. And science, there we go. That is mission accomplished already. This one did not take 40 minutes like the Eve mission, but, you know, I was taking you through step by step on that case. This time's been sped up quite a bit. If you want to do this yourself, I would set aside about 2.5, 3 hours to do this. So yeah, that's it. We've got some low and some high atmosphere science. And the last few shots as we move away from Duna. And in a minute it'll probably kick over into the sun's sphere of influence, and then you'll see the ship spiral out of control. And there we go, we're now in a solar orbit, which this ship was tracked until for another 2 years just to see where it was. And it was still doing interplanetary science experiments up until that time. But what you can see on your screen right now is, I think, the first picture that came back, and you can really see the individual pixels of the camera. It was a really low resolution. It's probably like 100 meters per pixel, quite large, and it gives it like a tapestry kind of effect. But this was the quality that you could get back in 1964. And if you've ever seen any colored photos from this, what they did was they were doing it like rotoscoping and stuff like that in the film industry, and the same people were brought into NASA to basically look through a telescope, and they could see that the high features, which were demonstrated as kind of like a white on this, were through a telescope looked kind of apricot-y. The dark bits looked more rusty, and then they just basically painted over on a transparency layer on top of this photo to get some color. But what I'm thinking is that Kerbals have a burgeoning film industry, and they had color film long before we would in our human evolution. And as you can see from the takeoff, we could see all of that in color, so why not have a color camera on the space vehicle itself? And that's what you can see here. These are the images from that previous flypast from that camera. And you can see that the sunrise is providing some brilliant relief shots, shadowing the mountain, so you can see how high the crests are. It's a little bit confusing, but the World War II reconnaissance, primarily women actually, who reviewed the photos from reconnaissance flights, were used by NASA to fill in the shadows pretty much, not draw them, but tell them what was there, because they'd been studying airfields and things from high altitude photos in World War II, and they were the best at it, and they were the analysts for these kinds of photos. And they obviously worked with planetary scientists and geologists who knew the planet itself, but didn't have great photographic expertise. And you can see that from here, Duna is incredibly cratered, and it's not mini craters that got massive impact damage on the surface, which might be worth sending a lander to. Maybe I'll be doing that in a future episode, but before I go to Duna, I might as well check out Eve next time, and that's what's going to happen. I'm going to be looking at the Soviet landers to Venus, the very, very simple atmospheric, basically balls that survived for a few seconds, but nevertheless they made it there, and some of them sent back footage. The Venera probes, I think they were called, and I'll be doing those for my next episodes. But as I fly away from Duna now, final few shots, getting a couple of angles, couple of close-ups, couple of nice far shots, and oh, it seems just as we're coming away, there's a bit of a shake, but I think that's because my RCS engines haven't been turned off. But you should just be able to see as well the ice caps on Duna in a couple of seconds. So yeah, if you liked this, please remember to subscribe and like the video. It helps me a lot, and obviously the subscriptions will help you because you will see my next video as soon as it's submitted. Leave any comments. I'm happy to reply to absolutely any of them, especially the interesting ones. I'm really happy to respond to interesting comments, but I'll look at every single comment that you send me. I have links on my page to my Twitter account and things like that, so don't forget to check those out. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you next time.